Welcome back to Whiskey World. We are here for episode 4 of season 2. Today we are drinking a bunch of fresh squeezed fruit into rye whiskey. It turned out pretty good.
This is my favorite one so far, because there's some grapefruit.
Well, I'll put the recipe in the description down below if you want to make the same drink. But go grab your favorite drink and sit down because we're going to run through this latest episode and a lot happened.
So we start out with Delos, which is not Logan. Is that his name?
Logan's dad.
Logan's dad, who ended up, I guess, putting stock or funding Westworld. And he's in this weird apartment situation thing, and then William comes in and has a conversation with him. And it seems like they're setting up a way to carry on his consciousness inside of a host, is what it seems like they're setting up. And then by the end of the scene, our theory was that he actually is already a host and they're testing him, and it turns out we're correct.
We're right. One of two things happened this episode. Either we were on our prediction game like never before, and if you've seen any of our other videos on our channel, you know we're actually pretty bad at predictions. Or this episode was a little easier to predict, which we'll talk about that later. We also catch back up with Bernard, which was nice after not seeing him at all last episode, and we actually see him get dropped off by Clementine at this cave, and Elsie was never killed, which we were happy about.
Because wasn't it your theory that she wasn't actually dead? And I was like, oh, she's totally dead. Ford wouldn't have left loose ends, but it's not a loose end. It's all part of the plan.
Yep. No on-screen death. They're not dead. So, we actually find out they're still alive, and there's actually a secret passage to a cell. So clearly think she was put there for a reason near where this cell was, that it looks like William had a secret little facility, like the other one we saw. Yeah, so there are clearly lots of secret labs throughout the park that Ford wasn't supposed to know about. And they go down in there, and people are, impaled on stuff. There are a lot of dead people, and we don't know what's going on.
And they go there to help Bernard get more of whatever brain host fluid thing he needs, because he is broken. So they're working on fixing that. Then we hop over to the Lakota tribe, which we've seen kind of be these ambiguous antagonists, and they have baby Hemsworth, or is he older Hemsworth?
He's older than...
Hemsworth.
Yeah, he's the oldest.
Security. I don't
Eldest
know.
Hemsworth?
Questionable. We'll look it up. But I don't know his character name. I just know he's a Hemsworth. And we see the girl from India. Also don't know her name. Have they told us?
No.
So girl from India.
They might have. Who knows?
Anyways, both of them are together, and then it turns out that she knows the Lakota language, which is an interesting twist. You're like, why do you know so much, girl?
Because Luke Hemsworth is even you have spent enough time in this park to learn the language?
Either that or she's a language expert, or who knows. She clearly knows her way around, so that's an interesting piece to her character. We don't really know what's going on with that as of yet. We just see that little tidbit.
Mm-hmm. Like we said, a lot happened this episode, because then we jump right over to William, the Man in Black, and Lawrence going to Lawrence's hometown, and we've seen this scene a couple times now where he goes, sits down, puts his bullets on the table, and the guy comes out and pours him a drink, and he notices, the guy's hands are shaking. He's like, I haven't even shot anybody yet. And it turns out the Confederados that Teddy let go actually showed up there and are, holding the whole town captive, and they get captured as well. So, blah, 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 long story short, what happens is the Confederados are going to kill Lawrence, and they're sending his wife out, and the guy's like, Death has no hold on me, because Death sent me back once, because Dolores revived him one time. And I think there's a really cool scene, though, with William, where he's like, you don't know Death, because he's sitting right in front of you. And then he just straight kills all of them, and you're like, it was a good scene. And I feel like William's starting to care a little bit.
Maybe.
Because I felt like he kind of did that because he didn't want Lawrence to just die. He's not quite as cold as he's letting on, is what I think.
It'll be very interesting if Dolores ends up losing her humanity piece as the Man in Black gains his, as a little bit of a trade. I think that's starting to be what happens. We'll see what goes on. Then, for the finale of the episode, we hop back over to Bernard and Elsie, and they end up finding, a locked room in this secret lab, and it turns out that that's where we entered the episode with Delos, but this is many, many years later, and a version of him is still there, and it's confirmed that he is a host. We're so good. And he's all cut up, and there's a lot of damage done, so I'm not sure if it's self-inflicted or what. I think that's kind of what's implied, is he's kind of just gone a little crazy.
A lot of crazy.
Yeah, and then Elsie he like attacks them. There's a whole kerfuffle. And then Elsie decides to burn it all down. And so that's what they do, and then they walk out. And it turns out that we see Bernard is going back in his memories, and the reason all the people in this lab are killed is because he whispered in the ear of one of those weird white drone things to basically kill them all, and they just went to town, and then they killed themselves. It was like very tying up the loose ends kind of situation. And he says this thing where he realizes that his memories are very unreliable at the moment, and he's time slipping, essentially.
He's drifting, yeah.
So it explains to us why we keep having these weird perspectives from him, and we're like, where are you? We don't know what's going on with timeline. It's one of the pieces that has been very confusing about the season, and that kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to why that's happening. So maybe that will allow us as an audience to piece apart when that's happening going forward. We'll see how they orchestrate it.
And I think one of the most important things is what they learned down there is that they were trying to transfer Delos' consciousness. And I think as they reintroduced his actual consciousness in, he kept degrading. And they figured out that they were trying to make people immortal and be able to just to jump hosts every time your body starts to fall apart. And you also find out that Bernard took one from the lab too. He goes, there's another human who was transferred into a bot still out there.
Oh, I don't remember this part. This was another day where I was falling asleep while watching this episode.
So yes, he actually says, oh, I remember I took another brain for the host from there.
Ooh, I bet
for
we
another
already
human
know
host.
we've met them, and it will be
I'm sure.
revealed later who it is.
Which, as a side note, they kept showing riding the bikes, and we were both hoping that when they revealed it was Delos down there, that it was actually going to be the Man in Black as a host. I think that would have been cool, and you find out that he's actually a host. But that
We're
didn't
too
happen.
early in the season for big reveals like that.
Those will come later.
Maybe. So like Steven said, we were on our hypothesis game this week. Tell them what we guessed next.
So I think it was...
I think you guessed this
Yeah,
one before I
because
did.
the Man in Black at one point mentioned his daughter, and he's like, she's smart as a whip, and capable too. And I was like, India Girl is his daughter.
It true.
And that was the reveal at the end of the episode, yeah. They ride up to each other, and she's like, and I go, hey Dad, and then she says, hey Dad, and I was like...
So I will say, while it was fun to have these things that we were able to predict, I also feel like it cheapened the episode a little bit for me, because I like being bamboozled, but Steven liked it, so...
I
different perspectives.
actually really like this episode. They put a lot more into the story of starting to form the puzzle.
I agree.
And I feel like there's still plenty of puzzle with all the things going on that I am okay giving us a couple things, because if everything remains a mystery, it gets frustrating.
Well, I agree, but I think the scene with the "Hey Dad" was a little cliche. In my
it
opinion.
was. That's why I was able to predict the exact line. But I still liked it.
Well, that wraps up this episode for this week. Let us know what you thought of this episode this week. Let us know if you were drinking whiskey with us or any other alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink. Drop your favorite recipes below. And if you like the series, please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you'll know when we post our next one. And we will see you guys in our next video. Bye!